In this video, I'm going to draw for you the divorce process. My name is Bobby Buchanan. I'm the host of Illinois Divorce TV, and in this episode, I'm going to give you a graphical or visual layout of the divorce process so you can hopefully better understand it and make better decisions as you move forward. Some of us are more visual thinkers or visual learners, so this video is for you. Now, I'm using some new tech here that I haven't used much, so bear with me as I kind of stumble through it, and hopefully the technology doesn't get in the way of the lesson. So first things first, let's pull up our whiteboard here that I'm going to be drawing on. And when we talk about the divorce process, we usually think about filing a divorce case. So let's put that right here, as the divorce case is going to be right here. New case, we'll call it. Now, a case doesn't need to be filed right off the bat. The first thing you need to understand is that in this area right here, before a new case, and let's call this time right here. Time is moving to the right. Before your new case, this is an opportunity for settlement. So you can have discussions, proposals. You can actually get financial documents from the other side. You don't have to file a new case in order to do any of that, but everything before the new case is going to be voluntary. When you're trying to work with the other side, you could both have attorneys, but neither attorney is going to be compelled to do anything. So we usually go from voluntary to a new case in two different circumstances. Either it's been so productive in the voluntary zone that you can file a case and get it done with, and that's your best case scenario. That means both people are cooperating and they just want to get it done. So the attorneys might say to each other, okay, we need to exchange all these bank statements. We need to exchange recent pay stubs. Let's get all the assets on paper. Let's get all the debts. And then they can start to work the numbers and figure out the financial components. And if there's kids involved, they can negotiate what the parenting plan is, decision making, etc. And they draft all the settlement documents, and you're done pretty much before you file the new case, and filing the new case is pretty much just a formality. Now, assuming things didn't go well in the beginning, let's talk about what happens when you file a case. First, what does filing a case really do? Well, it gives you a judge and it gives you a case number. So now you actually have a place that you can litigate in. It's kind of the vessel, if you will, to do all the things in the case that need to be done. Now, over here, let me see if I can work my pen here. Okay, over here, we'll call this trial. Trial is the very end step of a case. Now, what you have to understand is between new case and trial, don't worry, folks, I'll get better at this in time. Between these two spots here, you can settle. You can settle here, you can settle here, you can settle here, here, here. You can settle anywhere along this spectrum. There's no reason that your case has to go from new case to trial. Now, what makes a case settle here rather than here is going to depend on what goes on between this spot here and this spot here. Now, what usually happens at the beginning of the case? The first thing that must happen is that you got to get the other side involved. And there's two ways to do that. Two ways the court can get jurisdiction over the other side. The first is service. And that's pretty much like you see in the movies. Your spouse is handed a document. They don't have to say you've been served. Your spouse doesn't have to sign the document. All they need to all that needs to have happened is that they receive the document. And you could say, well, they could just say they never received it. It's not as easy as that, because the person giving them the document is called a process server, and their word is stronger than your spouse's. The other thing is a voluntary appearance. A voluntary appearance is where your spouse knows that the case has been filed, they hire a lawyer or they do it themselves, and they file what's called an appearance, and that's the official document that says that they're in the case. Now, once they're in the case, usually what happens around this spot, if there are children involved, is temporary orders. So let's say you start a case and there's a lot of tension and there's no really agreement on how you are parenting the kids. You've already separated, or you're feeling like you are about to separate. Your attorney's going to get in there and file a motion to establish some sort of temporary order to dictate what's going to go on with the kids. Or maybe it's a financial aspect where one side is controlling all the money and they've cut you off from your financial whatever, cut you off from the money, and your attorney will go in and ask the court that the other side maintain the status quo or continue paying for the things that they were paying. So this is temporary orders. The other big initial thing that happens right around this spot is financial affidavit. Financial affidavit is a 10 to 11 page document that both sides have to fill out in every divorce case. Few and far between, it's not filled out. It's not even worth talking about. Financial affidavits, for all intents and purposes, are mandatory. And that's where you're going to list out all your income, your assets, your debts, your expenses. Your entire financial picture is going to go on this financial affidavit. And in many cases, that financial affidavit is sufficient to settle a case. There may be some supporting documents that your attorney asks for with this financial affidavit, such as bank statements, check stubs, paycheck stubs, all that stuff we talked about previously in the voluntary zone before the new case that we were trying to get. That can be compelled here. So if the other side doesn't turn it over, your attorney can file a motion to have the judge say, listen, if you don't turn this over in 14 days, we're going to start sanctioning you, or we're going to not allow you to present certain evidence. So there's actually tools that we can use to push things along. After financial affidavits, around here, and usually lasting until around here, is discovery. And discovery is there goes my pen. Discovery is a more comprehensive turning over of documents and financial information and any other information that your attorney might feel is pertinent to your case. So basically you're sending a list to the other side saying, I want all of these documents. And in a divorce case, pretty much everything is on the table. I mean, you can get into a discovery war fighting over whether or not you have to turn over certain documents or don't have to turn over certain documents. But that is really largely, in my opinion, a waste of money. It's a tactic often attorneys use to jack up their bill, for lack of a better phrase. I mean, sometimes attorneys, they know how to make a case go from $5,000 case to a $15,000 case, issue discovery, then boom, the other side issues discovery. Before you know it, you're both compelled to do this massive exchange of documents that probably isn't necessary. So that's something that you want to be aware of and really talk through with your attorney. Now, when there are kids involved, I would say, generally speaking, and it's either going to happen here. Whoops, hit the erase again. It's going to happen here or maybe here before temporary orders, and that is going to be, I'm running out of space. That's going to be mediation. Mediation is how custody issues are generally resolved. or attempted to be resolved at the beginning of a case, and that is where you and your spouse are compelled to meet with a trained mediator who's a professional who attempts to get you guys to concede and find some common middle ground and figure out what's in the best interest of your child. That mediator will advise you that not agreeing to something and going down this path here is a bad idea because it's going to cost you a lot of money. The further you go down this path, the less control you have, because the further down towards this path and ultimately culminating at trial, the judge is making the decisions rather than the parents. And it really doesn't make sense for a judge to decide how you're going to raise your children. It should be you and your spouse. And what happens here, if mediation fails, you'll right around this spot in the case is a person called a GAL, or a child's representative, and that is an attorney that's specially appointed to investigate and make recommendations to the court as to the best interests of the children. Now, you can see that this whole thing is getting very messy at this point, and because of that, you should try to do whatever you can do to not have to deal with all of this mess. The only reason that you're going to go from here to trial is because both sides aren't conceding and deciding they're going to make a compromise in order to get this done and get to what is over here ultimately is the most important thing, and this is your new life. And your new life ultimately has a lot more potential than your old life, which is all messy here, and we want to get over here. So how do we get over there? Well, we can get over there at any one of these checkpoints. We can settle here, we can settle here, we can settle here. You don't have to wait for a case to proceed to settle. And oftentimes cases settle when the parties just run out of emotional or financial fuel and they're like, enough is enough, I'll just settle. There's no reason that can't happen right here or right here. If you have two attorneys who are working together in good faith, who are working with their clients to compromise, concede, if everybody's being diligent and turning over documentation, your case can settle right here and you can get directly to your new life, what I like to call chapter U. So that's an overview. I'll probably do this video again and it'll be a little bit more tidy and neat. But if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, drop them below and I'll see what I can do to help and clarify anything I can. Have a good one. Take care. And let me see if I can just go back to that view right there. And I hope this was useful. Talk soon.